start that again. Hi, this is Chipicon. This is this Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday workshops, and tonight we're talking about near-death experiences. I have as a guest Thor Halvorsen, who has had a near-death experience, and as close as I've gotten is I have a sister-in-law who left her body and went to heaven when she and so that was that. I'm going to ask people if, wait a minute, let's see, admit. I'm going to ask people if you could mute yourselves and then only unmute yourselves when you want to ask a question, in case you have a dog bark or something in the background. But now we will get on with the discussion. And I will let Thor do most of the talking, though I have never physiologically been able to not ask questions. Just don't expect that to happen. But this is the, Thor, could you talk about near-death experiences or?
Sure. All right.
Good.
So there are two different phenomena. There's one called near-death experience. The other one is called out-of-body experience. And there's NDE and OBE, respectively. The OBE is a component of NDE. Characteristics: an overwhelming sense of peace and well-being, being free from pain, floating and drifting through darkness or even light, awareness of a golden light or other light, encountering and communicating with something, succession of visual images from the past, time seems disconnected and disjointed. You can literally float through time. Experiencing another world, meeting past acquaintances, etc. But one of the biggest points is being located outside of one's physical body, and that's OBE. They do have a scale to measure that. It's called the Grayson 3-point scale. And I did find that one. I had to remember that one. But they asked, did time seem to speed up or slow down? Were your thoughts sped up? Did scenes from your past come back to you? Did you suddenly seem to understand everything? And did you have a feeling of peace or pleasantness? And that's their scale. And that was put together in 1983 by Grayson. And there's been other research since then. OBE is one of the characteristic basic experience. So essentially, you can have where somebody sees themselves from their own perspective. In other words, they're seeing another visual of themselves outside of their body. Or they're seeing themselves from that other being, from its perspective. Or in this sense, completely separated from the body. There were two instances of that. A lot of people confuse that with astral travel. And while it has some similarities, there are distinct differences. Astral travel tends to be in a dream state. It tends to be willful. You put yourself there. An out-of-body experience is either you're basically pushing your subconscious out, usually as a result of trauma. Some people with PTSD have reported this too. There's that, or you have a traumatic brain injury, or there's also recorded cases that are linked to cardiac instances. In my case, I was the one where, well, I had a traumatic thing going on. I had multiple brain bleeds at the same time. So I was in a medicated coma for 4 days. In between that time period, I was so disconnected. I saw myself floating in like a purple haze. And I've astral traveled before. I remember, seeing that silver cord and you drift off and you can look at different things. I even saw Earth from the exterior, like I was out of space. And then I felt the tug and I was back. What was different from this experience was I had a complete 3D view. I was looking at myself floating. There was no line, and I saw everything that was about me on this sort of like a ball. Made me think of the labyrinth, David Bowie's balls, off into a distance. And subconsciously, I knew all my associations, all my obligations, my tangible existence was there. All the connections with the people who were living, all that was there. And then I sort of pulled back and I was reflecting on myself a little bit, and I realized my emotions were still intact. My thoughts were still intact. I was still having thoughts. I was still having feelings. I was still very sentient. Then comes the big aha. If all that stuff is over here, then what then defines you? What makes up that core beyond just the label of spirit? I still had all my essences of my identity and everything. It was separate from occupation. It was separate from geography, separate from culture, separate from family association, etc. But yet, through my experiences, my knowledge, my upbringing, my memories, my interactions, I still had ties to all that. When I woke up, I felt disembobulated. I was completely disoriented. And that wasn't just what they knocked me out with. None of that. But what I did feel was the trauma to my body was so intense. Obviously, I had a craniotomy, that I had thought that I had gotten into a car accident. I didn't even remember why I was in the hospital. That's what was interesting. So for me, it was profound, because it was then I realized from that experience, I was no longer afraid of death. And my life took a different meaning, context. I realized at that point, if I had let go, all of my existence would have been locked up behind a computer, behind a password, up in the clouds.
Gone.
And I'm not sure if the people would have been able to dive into my thing to get to it or care to. They're just going to think, oh, that's just this computer. It can go. Not realizing that 35 years of poetry was in that computer. All of my interests in ebooks, my music, things that in a normal, tangible sense would be things that people would want to hand down. Heirlooms. People's music. Music is something that people tend to pass down. Or things you've written. But here, I've made my life completely intangible. So I adjusted. I'm now trying to do as much tangible as I can. So that was the impact on me. The other thing was where I have a profound respect for the spiritual after that, way more than I had. And I can relate to people a little better because of that. Okay. Elizabeth, I think, was wanting to say something. No? Okay. You're just
I'm
front
okay.
and center.
Yeah.
Probably because you weren't muted.
What's that?
Probably because you weren't muted. The microphone was thinking you were wanting to say something.
Yeah, my experience wasn't nearly as spiritual.
Okay.
Is this where I find out my sister died too?
Well, twice.
Oh my goodness. I feel uninformed.
Well, when I fell off the 8-foot wall and I woke up on the ground and I was standing over myself.
That sounds like it.
And I feel like I didn't go through all those things you went through. I just knew I had to take care of myself, that I had to get back to the house.
Right.
Or I would die right there, right? I pretty much knew that was it. And then the other time was in the hospital, I had a heart attack.
Not all. I think this is important. In the studies, not everybody experiences all of these things. What it is people like us who want to understand the unexplained go out and they interview a bunch of people. In the 19th century, it's really cool. Somebody interviewed people who had fallen from a great height and survived. And then there was another, like, oh, well, we should compare this to the people who almost drowned and the people who almost died from other reasons. So it's so people are getting into this so there's this very long list of things that people experience. Some of them experience the go into the light, go down the long tunnel. Some of them experience meeting dead friends.
I just knew I had to get to the house, and the weird thing was I felt no pain. Although
Right.
I was in pain. I had a broken arm, and I obviously had knocked myself out. And of course, I got to the hospital and I didn't tell them that I knocked myself out because I knew they wouldn't give me painkillers for my arm. But it was a sense that I have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
So that was when you were younger.
It was about 5 years ago.
Oh, but your kids weren't there anymore.
My kid, no, I lived alone, and I went out to just a light at 11 o'clock at night, and slipped off an 8-foot wall and landed on rocks.
Ow.
Oh, I remember that. You broke your glasses and I remember that.
That's right. I lost my glasses, and they looked for them, and the emergency people looked for them, and then friends came over to the house to look for them. Finally, someone found them. But I had forgotten that part. But I was completely separated from my body. I didn't know anything hurt. until I was in my nightgown and I was trying to get dressed to go to the hospital because I knew it was like midnight by this time. And I knew, I won't get home till 5 or 6 in the morning. And I don't want to be leaving the hospital in a nightgown, So I guess I had a certain amount of vanity going still. And I went to put my bra on and I couldn't. The hand wouldn't function. And then there was also a knee injury, but it wasn't as bad. They and as I said, I never told them in the hospital that I was knocked out because I knew they'd focus on that, and wouldn't take care of the arm, and I was thinking okay by that time. And so I didn't think I had a brain bleed or anything going bad like that. So I lied. But I can remember the nightgown I was wearing. I can remember how I was lying on the ground. I can remember standing over myself. And I remember walking up to the house and not feeling any of the pain. While I called 911 and still didn't connect. The heart attack was different. The heart attack was in the emergency room, and they said, "You're having a heart attack. You're having a heart attack." The doctor's yelling at me, like that's supposed to calm you down, right? And the last thing I remember them saying was Ativan and morphine. And I woke up the next morning in ICU, but so I had no experience with that other than Ativan and morphine worked pretty effectively.
A lot of the people who've had near-death experiences and stuff, they talk about, the causes, they talk about REM intrusion, and that's usually when they take drugs that block the REM. Another one is cerebral anoxia, which is shortage of oxygen. If somebody falls hard enough, they get the wind knocked out of them. And if it takes them like more than a minute or so to start breathing, they get the same effect.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, trying to avoid reality. If they're in a situation that's so traumatic, they check out.
Yeah, I just remember looking at myself on the ground.
So you were above yourself.
I was out of myself, and I just remember looking, saying, if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to die right here. And I guess I just wasn't ready to die.
Yeah. Some of the effects of NDEs are increased concern for others, reduced death anxiety, strengthened belief in the afterlife, and increased self-worth. Did that fit all of that?
I didn't think of anybody else. I feel kind of selfish now.
An awful lot of people who do go through it, when some being meets them and they say, you have a choice, you can go back or not, they often are going back to help their kids. It's a thing. Parents just feel that their role in life, their most important job, is taking care of their children. And That's one of the most common.
I strongly felt my most important job was getting myself back to the house. That was that. I hate to admit, these people sound much nicer than me, but that was my experience. I think I had the wind
You
knocked
didn't
out of
seem to
me,
get as far
and
as,
I was knocked out.
yeah, but you didn't seem to get as far as heaven. A lot of people actually get to a place where everything is peace and love, and they have their dead friends with them, and angelic beings, and they don't want to go. They like it. They love being dead, but that's when your kids come in. It's like, oh well, I guess I'll go back to the physical world if I have to.
Well, it's your obligations, it's unfinished business, it's the things that you love that still root you. And this is why when they talk about when people get older, staying, or they have things like dementia, things like that, Alzheimer's, it's engaging them, keeping those roots alive. It gives them that tether. And this is why when you look at things like social isolation, especially in the punitive judicial system where solitary confinement is the worst thing, because in isolation we lack those tethers, the roots. And this is why in trying to help people stay engaged allows them to stay involved and be able to come back in a sense.
Did you get to a point, Thor, where you were in the peaceful, were you aware that you were dead? Were you in the blissful place? Did you speak to other entities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ironically,
I think Liz just got knocked out of her body.
yeah,
Out of body experience.
In my case, I was pushed into a chemical coma for 4 days because they couldn't operate because my blood was too thin. I had been taking ibuprofen and Benadryl in high doses for about 2.5 months to combat the spinal meningitis that started this whole roller coaster.
Yeah.
So it was the spinal tap that they did improperly that caused the brain bleed by manner of causing a vacuum. That pressure in the spinal fluid is very precise science. So anyway, yes, I did get to that peaceful place. And what was ironic was, like I said, I was sort of free floating. I saw everything over here to the left. And I had a feeling of I wasn't alone. Thoughts were coming like this. And I just had a feeling of, well, they would like me to go back. My dog would miss me terribly. And I was basically the main reason why she was still around. I had a responsibility within my Coven family. So I was like, But then on the other hand, yes.
I think that's what I felt. I had a responsibility to come back.
I did feel a tug the other way, where there was that sense of you can choose to let it go, and you would just be. In the sense that I would get all the people that I never met that I would meet from the family line, etc. And I had that sense of freedom, like everything was unburdened. I didn't have any stress, no worries, nothing. It was just all gone.
I had no pain.
Yeah. everything was in disassociated.
Yep.
And I admit, up to that point, I had been in pretty good amount of stress. So I also had a sense of restfulness. At the same, like I just had just a massive sigh.
I did too. I just remembered that. Yeah, it was. I was very. I knew I had to get up to the house, but I was very calm about it. I mean, it's very. This is what I need to do. I need to get up to the house and I need to call 911 and
Right.
just.
Yeah. So
But
for me, I do consider myself spiritual. So when I was in that space, it was where, yeah, I would equate it to the spiritual world. My favorite, one of my favorite movies is What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams and Sam
Oh,
Goodall
yeah,
Jr.
Wonderful.
yeah.
That fit my construct. Not the concept of hell, but the thought of it's an open canvas. And I got to the point where it's like, okay. And I see where belief system allow us to have a bridge, a construct to have an understanding of what's next, an interpretation of what's next, and also a key to connect with the culture and the family and the history that surround us in our family lineage, ancestral wise. We are also, even though I was separated from everything, it was out here, I'm
Right.
still a byproduct of all those experiences.
Sure you
I'm
are.
still a byproduct of that cultural lens, beliefs, assumptions, etc. So applying that to ancestral veneration, each person I saw was also a snapshot of the time span. But that said, what I realized, my eureka moment, was even though I was separated from my body at that point,
Yeah.
my learning did not stop. My experiences did not stop. And proof of that is I remember when I came back. I was still able to process those memories. So
Yeah.
that's key.
I don't.
So what
I
is the
don't.
basis? What's the
I
basis
don't
of those
remember.
memories?
Yeah, I don't remember. Like I remembered that I knew I had to get to the house, but I don't remember how I got up there. And based on the injuries, I should have had more trouble.
Hmm.
Nobody was looking. You may have blinked up.
It's entirely possible. This is a side for my sister. When the ambulance showed up, Kathy Richmond's daughter was the ambulance driver. Which worked out great that I knew the girl and I said, "Can you help me put my bra on?" Because I still couldn't put my bra on.
Well, you're lucky they didn't say, well, we're just going to have to cut it off.
Well,
But
there, there is the other thing too I was thinking about. I was a caretaker for 20 years
Yeah.
with a gentleman who had a multiple sclerosis. I was watching a war within his body. I was watching a war within his mind. I was watching that corruption, per se, of his understanding, his perception, his memories, his personality, his emotion, all of that disjointed.
Yep.
That, and he had not Alzheimer's, dementia, MS-induced dementia. And I'm watching that, and it's like there's a cloud on the mind. Everything comes in riddles like Yoda sometimes, or disjointed thoughts from one thought to the next, memories from one thought to the next. And it took me having my brain injury and having my ability for short-term memory affected to build that bridge for me to understand him.
I bet that gave you a lot of understanding. Yeah.
It did. It did. And it gave me the tools I needed to be there with him for the last years of his life. And yeah, we fought sometimes. Sometimes it was epic, but yeah, not violent or anything, verbal sometimes. But
No.
well, we all came back together. And what was interesting was, before he passed, he said, "You've been there and you came back." That gave me the courage to be at peace. That's one. Two, he said,
Wow.
you were
That's
much
really...
more humanistic in your approach to me after your brain bleed, where you were with an air of impatience before.
That's
Through
really
all
interesting.
that damage, he was demonstrating appreciation. And one of his last things was to thank me, hug me, and then he was trying to hug his wife when he passed. And what stuck with me was how close the parallel is between near-death experiences, astral travel, and what we commonly think of as paranormal. There have been instances where people saw orbs by people in the hospital. I saw that. There have been reports of that. You see that all the time. You hear where people are going to pass, where they get visited by relatives. They see them. They interact with them.
When I had the heart attack and I woke up and my sisters were in my room that never visit me, I thought I must have died. Or,
Don't tell her that.
No, it wasn't me. That's 200 miles away. I didn't get there.
no, it was Trish who's never visited me, and Jill who's never visited me. And I woke up and they're in my room and I went, oh my God, I must have died. It must have been really bad.
Tell me, did you burst out laughing for no reason known to them?
I think I probably did. I think I was definitely amused by it.
Yeah, I know that I exhibited the typical behaviors of somebody who has a traumatic brain injury or TBI.
Yeah.
Because my humor, my sense of humor during the time I was in the hospital did turn uncharacteristic. Like I was, there was the lady coming to collect my lunch, and I grabbed my book and said, "Hold on, the mystery meat crawled off the plate. I'm looking for it." And then I told the nurse who was bringing me medication, and they were green pills and blue pills. I said, "This is not the Matrix, and those are not the right blue pills." And I kept a straight face. I can't do it now, but I did then. And I had an interpreter there because for 3 weeks I did not have English.
Oh no.
I only had ASL. So I was
Oh.
interpreting through the interpreter, and the interpreter's interpreting to the nurse, and the nurse is like, no, this is Thor Halvorsen. Yep, these are his pills. And I said, no, wrong blue pills. No, these are your pills. I said, no,
Were
ma'am.
they the right blue pills?
Well, the interpreter stepped out of his role. He said, I'm stepping out of my role, which means he's not interpreting what I'm saying. He's speaking for himself. And he goes, ma'am, he's dicking with you. Those aren't Viagra.
This is not the Matrix.
Hmm?
This is not the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my humor definitely was skewed then.
I want to ask Liz to mention a couple other things. This is not the same, but it is related. And I happen to know that Liz saw some of this. She was there to care for my father while he was dying.
Oh,
And there's a
I wondered if I should bring this up.
And this is closely associated. There is a huge pile of research on people who've watched people die, and they clearly see dead people who they can talk to. And I know Liz saw Dad talking, I think, to Bob, our brother.
I think it's to Mom. To be honest with you, I because he used to tell me almost every day that he missed her. But Dad was so weak he couldn't get in bed by himself. So I had to get in his bed and hold my arms under his armpits, to hold him in bed. And all of a sudden he sat right up, just as strong and and clearly spoke to someone in the room at the foot of the bed, like, I'll be there soon, or I'll see you then, or it it woke me up, so I was asleep when it happened. But I mean, he was so weak, there was no way he could pull himself up normally. But he sat right up in bed, and he was talking to someone at the foot of the bed.
Yeah. Brian, the man I was helping take care of, now he's an uncle because I'm dating his niece. About a week before he passed, he was constantly saying he was seeing his brother who died when he was 3.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
he saw his brother as an older person, not as the boy. He also saw, he saw his parents. And we even saw the previous pets who had passed away before. We saw shadows of them through the house. There was one time I could have swore I heard the donkey that we used, not the donkey, the goat that we used to have. Even after he passed, we would sometimes see one of our cats that he was fond of. So about a week before and then about a span of time after there's a death, there is a lot of spiritual activity. There were constantly people that he was seeing and interacting with. And sometimes what was really interesting, he was being told things and they were knowledge bits that he shouldn't have known of or didn't have known knowledge of. that was told to him that was confirmed by somebody else. And they were like, how
Well,
did he know that?
yeah, the oddest one I had was when my brother died,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all gathering at our summer cottage. And when I got there, my cousin showed up, and he said, "Oh, I had a dream about Bobby last night." And I've maybe had 2 dreams with dead relatives in them. You know, I never dream about people who passed. But anyway, and he said, yeah, he said he was flickering the lights on and off. I said, well, that sounds like something he'd do. So he went down to his camp, and I went down to my camp, and sitting on the porch for family friends, the Parodies, and my at least 1 or 2 of my sisters, and they didn't have the lights on the porch. It was dark. I said, why don't you have the lights on? They keep going on and off.
Sounds like
I didn't tell him about the conversation I had just had with Chuck, his cousin. I just thought, okay, Bobby, you're being, we know you're here. I know you're here. You want me to know I know you're here, and left it at that.
You
Oh, so like
mentioned
just before Mom died. Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
I was just going to mention that just before Mother died, her brother and his wife came to visit, and she was sure there was somebody in the house, and she kept saying, somebody's in the house. I said, Pat, there's nobody in the house with us. And then she said, oh, it's Mother. And calmed down, and no other problems. Her mother had died in 1963. And the next morning she didn't wake up.
Yeah.
So
well, that makes me really happy. That makes me really happy because she really missed her mother. I asked Mom when she was dying. She had cancer, so it took a long time. And I said, how are you going to know? I said, my vision of heaven is everyone's a Tinkerbell. Like you lose your body, so everyone's like a Tinkerbell. Just a spirit, whatever you want to call it. I called it a Tinkerbell.
Little flashing light.
And I said, with all those Tinkerbells up there, how are you going to know which one is your mother? And she looked me right in the eye, just straight on. She said, I'll know her. And after that, I was perfectly comfortable with her dying, because she was perfectly comfortable that she would find her mother, who she loved very, very much. So when she died, I just felt she went to the Tinkerbell, found the right Tinkerbell. I don't know how you find the right Tinkerbell, but
Brian was very concerned with finding his brother before he died, because he had never met him but always felt his presence. So I think that's one of the reasons why his brother showed up for him. The other thing is,
that probably helped him.
From ancestral veneration, I equate it to a family ancestor liaison. Somebody shows up to ferry you, to give you the breadcrumbs to follow, but also it is a familiar face, presence, energy, personality that greets you, so you're in a state of calm.
It could be a Tinkerbell. And I mean, it could be a person, it could be a Tinkerbell. your spirit, a spirit is, I
Right.
guess, what I want to say it.
Right.
That's the way I think of it.
But it's universal in that regard. I mean, the research that I read was done in 47 countries, and
Yeah,
the accounts were across the board, despite the culture. Now, the
really.
symbols, yeah, the symbols, the deities, the cultural blends was influenced by their culture,
Right.
but their experiences of the characteristics of what they describe fit. They all feel alike, they all see relative, they all feel at peace and unburdened, they all feel immediate knowledge, and they feel a tug between do I go back or do I keep going? And
Yeah.
there's
Well,
a timelessness.
so Ginny, just so you know, if I go end up in the hospital, don't just show up out of the blue, because I'll think I died again.
It would take me a while to get there.
You can send a card, it's fine.
Yeah, I should do
Well,
that.
by
I'll
that
be
time,
there
we might have
waiting for the house.
hologram.
No. This is one of the things when you get old, so many parts have gotten broken down, and I can't see and I can't hear, and my teeth are falling out, and I'm like, I'm going to turn this one in. And thing is, like a car, you can turn in, get a new one, but the body, you got to go back to the shop yourself. So, but I've played with out of body experiences because I've been doing this kind of stuff for since I was preteen.
Yeah,
And
preaching.
when I once did manage to get, no, twice. I managed out of body experience, but then I heard somebody coming, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to catch me without my body on. And it was modesty sent me back into my body.
Well, that's what I was trying to explain about being in my nightgown outside. I didn't want to be found in my nightgown dead outside.
That would have been embarrassing, yeah.
Actually, that thought right there, not having control of how somebody finds you,
Oh yeah,
that
I don't
is
like
common.
that. I don't like that thought at all. I've thought about that many. Do you know how many people die on the toilet?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them.
Because
Presley.
they're going number 2, and it puts pressure on their heart, and they have a heart attack.
Or aneurysm.
That if I go that way, someone come save me first. I don't want to go that way.
Put you in the bed and then call the paramedics.
My great grandfather.
At least pull my pants up,
My great grandfather, he was a toy maker.
Yeah.
One of the last in the guild of toy makers. And
Cool.
he went out to mow the lawn. He came back in. His son greeted him in the kitchen. He said, hey, let me get you a glass of ice water. And he went to go give him the cup, and he went to go sit down, and his son was going to make him a sandwich. By the time he came back, he was gone.
I've heard so many people remember Aunt Victoria, or mom's cousin.
Yeah.
They were watching the Kentucky Derby, and they had a bet on it, and her husband, who was an ass, said, I won, and looked over, she was dead. And John Parody, the same thing. They were watching golf on TV, His wife said something to him, and he was just dead in his chair. Just that's how I want to go, not on the toilet.
Yeah. Well, one of my dear friends and the matriarch of our coven family passed that way. But she had an inkling. About a month or so before she passed, she kept saying, I need to go to the gym. I need to make my heart stronger. I just feel like my cardiovascular is not strong enough. So she was starting to go to the gym and stuff. And one
That'll
day
kill you every time.
she went to bed and her husband woke up just as she was exhaling her last breath.
Yeah.
And recently, about 2 weeks ago, one of my friend's oldest son suddenly passed. He had been working out a lot, and he had just came back from the gym, parked his truck in the driveway, walked to his room, closed the door. His father heard him fall on the bed. About 5 minutes later or so, 10 minutes later, about a half hour later, he goes back into the room. He was gone.
You don't get to pick how you go. I mean, if you have a bad heart and you don't know it, and you don't know, and you could be a runner, you could be very athletic. You don't know.
Right.
I just don't want to go on the toilet. That's all, please.
or in compromised position.
Or I'm not. That's gonna get me thinking. No.
Well, and we are getting to the end here. Are there any questions that anybody has that need to be answered? Take yourself off, unmute yourself if you have a question.
No, but thank you very much. I found this was very amusing and I enjoyed it very much. I just want to say that.
That is one of the things that Changing Times, Changing Worlds is about. And I want to invite everybody, tell your friends, tell them about the Wednesday night shows. And the conference, which is going to be the 9th through the 15th of November, which will be a whole lot of workshops. Some of them will be like this. Some of them will be, panels will be probably more like this with more people talking. And one of the cool things about Changing Times, Changing Worlds is that you can talk openly about things that you probably would not talk about in a
like you dying on the toilet.
Well, yeah, but don't die on the toilet, or you're careful not to tell people something that's going to make them look funny, or they might bring up later when it's time for your job review.
May I bring up one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Now, you guys didn't have this experience, but the next day when I was in the hospital after I fell, I had at least 5 friends call and yell at me.
Why yell at you?
Because I went outside by myself at midnight and fell.
To fix the light, yeah.
To fix the light. Like, why didn't you have me fix it during the day? Well, because it was the kind that comes on at night. And I thought I could do it. So if someone gets hurt, don't yell at them.
Yes.
They're just trying to show you how much they love you.
Yeah, strange way.
You know, I'm pretty sure that Elvis in the afterlife is like, I have this illustrious life, and all they remember me for is dying on the freaking toilet.
I'm afraid that's probably true.
It's going to be true, and you know what's going to happen now. That's what's going to happen to me. That's going to be my biggest fear. I've let you know my biggest fear, and now that's what's going to happen. Oh, doomed myself to a toilet.
Well, just don't make a self-fulfilling prophecy now.
Lots of X-Lax so you don't have to strain.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty of water.
Yeah,
And-
lots of water.
Just
Okay.
think Olean.
But yes, this is a place where you can get together and you can talk about the stuff. See, I didn't say shit again. Oh, now I said it. Right. Anyway, this is the changing times, changing worlds. We can get together and we can talk about the stuff that you're not supposed to believe in public. One of the things I say about changing times, changing worlds is that it's like sex in Victorian England. Everybody did it, but it wasn't polite to talk about it. People are psychic.
Well, that hasn't changed.
Kidding. People talk about it all the time. It's on
Oh
PBS.
my God! If my girls ever brought it up to me, I would be
Well,
horrified.
you don't talk about it with your parents. No. And I don't talk about it with my children. But
Right.
the thing is that people don't talk about psychic stuff because it can be dangerous to your job, your
I would be
custody, or
much happier talking about psychic stuff with them than
sex. Yes, you can't even say sex. So
I stuttered.
yes, but anyway,
All
so
right.
please tell your friends, tell them about the conference, and tell them about the Wednesday shows. And now, Thor, you're going to caption these for us, right?
I'm going to take X-Lax. I'll see you later.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming. And next week I've got MCAT Megan Splain. What is she talking about? Where's my notes? Anyway, I'm sure it will be good. And
Will be.
It can't be as good as this one. This was great.
and then the next week I've got the Loon Witch, Shaw Blackburn. She's coming on, and she will be talking. I think she's talking about all the different decks of tarot cards and how they're good for different things. So anyway,
Ooh, that should be fun.
and so after that, I want to try and get something about healing, because I like to balance out all these shows with all of the weird stuff.
I volunteer for vibration therapy.
Oh,
Bye-bye. I really enjoyed you. Thank you very much.
okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
And I guess I'm going to, if there aren't any last words, I'm going to end the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank everybody. Bye-bye. And call.